Going to record. So we have it. Awesome. Do you want me to kick it off, Raj?
Yeah, go for it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Super excited to be hosting this workshop. I'm Walter from HubSpot for Startups. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. I've been with HubSpot for Startups for about 2.5 years. I currently manage our West Coast operations and our Midwest operations. Prior to HubSpot, I was with Techstars for 2.5 years. So I love, supporting the startup community and working with all the founders and partners such as yourselves that are joining. So just a little quick background on our program if you're not familiar with us. We really focus on 3 core areas. We offer a ton of educational resources such as workshops like today. If you go on our website, we have a lot of resources around fundraising, sales, marketing, customer service. So definitely check out the HubSpot for Startups website. We also have a ton of integrations. So if you're thinking about integrating or using HubSpot, we probably integrate. And then our most important aspect of our program is we offer a 75% discount off our products. So what I'll do is once Raj starts here, I'll add a link in the chat that you can use to apply to our program and take advantage of the HubSpot discount. So yeah, super excited for today's presentation. I will hand it off to Raj to get started.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, Walter. Thank you to the HubSpot for Startups team. Super excited to be here today in front of all of you. A couple of quick housekeeping things. If you're just joining in the last 30 seconds or a minute or so, people have just been throwing their name in the chat along with where they're located and their company name. This is going to be highly interactive. So if you are able to have your camera on, it really helps me, and you'll get a lot more out of the workshop as well. If you're not in a situation where you can have it on, I totally understand. But if you are able to have it on, that'd be great. Also, be ready throughout to come off of mute at certain times. I might ask for that, or just be ready on the chat. You're going to get a lot of information over this next hour. And so the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it as well. So this is how to not suck at pitching your startup. Obviously, you're all here for that very reason. And we're going to talk through this today. Specifically, what we're going to cover is this workshop is broken down into 3 parts. The first segment is around mindset as it pertains to pitching, which is very important. And then if we don't have that right, nothing else really matters. The second segment is we're going to cover formulas and strategies.
Sore throat.
And then the third segment is going to cover actual examples of pitches using those formulas and strategies. Now, pretty much everything we're covering today is specifically focused on your elevator pitch. Like, what do you say when someone says, what does your company do? Right? How do you give an answer there? Let's see if we can get people on mute right now anyway.
The whole entire week.
Walter, if you could just mute them for me. So we're focused on that elevator pitch today. I would say you can apply a lot of this stuff broadly beyond an elevator pitch, but very tactically, we're going to be focused on an elevator pitch. There is also a part 2 to this workshop that we won't have time to get through today. So in a follow-up email after this, what I'm going to do is send you what I call the director's cut recording of this workshop. It's a pre-recorded version that covers everything we covered today in hyperspeed overview. And then there's an extra, I think, 15 minutes or so specifically dedicated to storytelling techniques for building your pitch deck if you desire to raise capital. And then you'll also get sent as follow-ups some pitch tips progressively over the next couple of weeks as well, some additional pitch tips. So with that, everybody, welcome in. My name is Rajiv Nathan, aka RajNATION. I'm the founder of Startup Hypeman. This is how to not suck at pitching your startup. And I'll get into a little bit more of my background in a minute. But first, let's just start off with, you all tuned in today, really tuning in and expecting a workshop. And I'm going to give that to you. But I also want you to know that you may not have realized it, but by tuning into this workshop today, you've also tuned into a live interactive game show called Pitch Your Startup. Woo, woo, woo. That's right. It's Pitch Your Startup, the only live interactive game show right here on Zoom with HubSpot for startups, where we take one volunteer, we bring them on down, and they have to, none other than in front of their peers in a room of people they do not know, pitch their startup. So what I would like is one volunteer who wants to come on down. I will put 60 seconds on the clock, and your job is to pitch me. Who would like to be our volunteer? Going once. Going twice. If it gets to thrice, I'm going to pick someone.
Oh, Raj, you're gonna make me come out of my comfort zone, huh?
All right, everybody give Molly a round of applause. Okay, Molly, I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. You can decide if I'm, a potential investor or customer. That's up to you. And your job is to pitch me. Ready, set, go.
All right, Raj, I've got a wonderful product that's gonna help kids who have anxiety. It's an app that allows them to track heart rate. It also has inputs where they're inputting their mood, and it overlays with their school schedule. So the goal is that we're providing kids with the ability to that have emotional disabilities to have more information to help implement meaningful interventions. That was terrible. See why I'm here? I need your help, Raj, really bad.
Well,
I
you
have
clocked
so
in at
many good
28
ideas.
seconds. 30 more seconds, 32
right
seconds
now.
is fair. All right, first off, everyone give Molly a round of applause for trying. Big
It's
first
too
step
hard.
there. Thank you, Molly. All right, talk to me. How do you feel right now?
A little embarrassed, would like to better articulate like the passion and excitement I have for this product, and really don't know how to do it.
Okay.
I can do it in a long
there.
discussion. I can talk to you and convince you, but 60 seconds, man.
It's funny you say that because you still had another 32 seconds you could have given me, which technically is long relative to 28 seconds. So, and I do hear a lot of people be like, oh, if I have an hour with someone, then I can really get them to know it. But someone's not going to give you an hour if they don't care about it right away. Your first 60 seconds determines your next 60 minutes. And that's why it's so crucial to land this value proposition up front. Now, Molly, with your pitch, there were some elements in there that I think are usable. What it was not coming into ultimately was like a story I could follow along. I felt disparate parts that the analogy I would use is like, if you think about flying a plane, it's like we're circling the runway, but we're not landing the plane. We want to land the plane. And what I want you to have today is the toolkit to be able to land the plane and tell a story in 1 minute or less. Now, Molly, if you were going to rank your pitch on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rank it?
That was like a 2. I can do better.
Everyone else in the chat, if you don't mind unsolicited feedback, just give that a rank of a 1 out of 10. You can be generous if you want, or you can be.
Well, I don't know you. It's fine.
There you go. Walter gives you a 5.
Thanks, Walter.
Look at this. Most people here are giving you better than what you said. So at least don't feel so bad about it. But I know we can get you to a better place. And so I want to give you those skills and tools and resources to get you from what you said was a 2, maybe up to a 7 or 8 pretty quickly, but then very shortly after that, up to a 10 out of 10. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. You can go back on mute now. Everyone, once again, give her a round of applause.
Yes.
Now I've got a question for everyone else, and you can use the chat for this next part. It was like a 14-second gap, and then Molly's like, all right, I'm going to do this. Where were all of you in those 14 seconds? Tell me why you did not take the opportunity that was handed to you. You don't know who else is on this call. There could be an investor on this call. There could be a potential customer on this call. How come you didn't take the opportunity to pitch right there?
So Raj, I didn't take the opportunity, and you just hit it on the head, because I have a CPG food-based startup, and I make the assumption sometimes on these webinars that everyone is here from the tech world. So
fair assumption. I think you'll get a lot of tech people naturally, but even if you have a CPG startup, you're still building a company, so you still belong here. All right. Everybody else, throw some answers in the chat for me. What was holding you back from stepping up to the plate there? You had an opportunity. You don't know what's on the other side of that. Via, want to learn first and then do a good job when you get the opportunity. I see. You're feeling that it's still not perfect. Let's see if we can get one or two more answers here. Rebuilding it right now, Nicholas says. Okay. Anyone maybe feel like they're not ready? Anyone feel like they don't like being put on the spot? Any of those things sound familiar? Okay, I'm seeing some nods of your heads. All right. So I want you to just kind of like look around at everyone right now and notice that you're all kind of in that same boat, right? Like not one person in this room is really like, oh, I was so eager. I just happened to be eating a sandwich in the moment or something like that. I mean, maybe that exists, but everyone in this room right now is like, I don't quite feel like it's there and I'm not quite ready and I don't like being put on the spot. So if that's where you're at today, you're not alone. So I want you to understand that you're not alone. Now I'm going to play bad cop. You're not alone, but it's also not okay because you don't know when opportunity is going to strike. And opportunity lies on the other side of that introduction, on the other side of that conversation. And I promise you, what will not happen is you're walking outside and you bump into a potential investor or customer, and they're like, oh, you know what, Christine, not right now, but 24 hours from now, I want to meet you right here. And then I want you to pitch me. So just like get the nerves out, like figure it out, do all those things. Tomorrow, same time, same place, we'll meet on this concrete slab. And then I want to hear your pitch. Right? That is just not going to happen. What is going to happen is you will find yourself at a networking event. You will find yourself at a conference or a trade show. You may be in an actual elevator, and these people are going to ask you, what does your company do? Tell me about your company. And those are all going to be on the spot moments, or you're going to be felt like you're being put on the spot if you are not prepared in advance. But these are all the moments that you capture opportunity in. And it really works that way. Because if you can nail that introduction, now you invite a conversation. And that conversation can go in many ways in your favor, but you got to figure out how do you buy that, how do you use that first 60 seconds to buy that next 60 minutes with a person. And that's why this is so vitally important. And from this day forward, I don't want you to get away with, I'm not ready right now, that kind of thing, right? I want you to really have this owned, and that at any given point, you can deliver your pitch like it's a reflex. So let's talk about this pitch content today. And I want to do that by sharing with you the story of a couple other founders who are just like you. Their names are Kim and Joyce, and they co-founded a company called HonestGame. They took a version of this workshop a while back, and here's what they told me afterwards. You have Kim's quote at the top and Joyce's quote at the bottom. Kim talking about how we have different strengths. Joyce is saying like, hey, like people aren't understanding this. It's a big problem. People need to understand it and they don't understand it. They had visions of building up and growing their company. They were about to onboard their first 4 or 5 unpaid customers, but they just were totally out of sync with their audience and out of sync with each other. In fact, they came up to me and they were like, Kim was like, Joyce and I we could be at the same event and we could talk to 2 people. Those 2 people could then talk to each other and they would be convinced they met 2 completely different companies just before. That's how out of sync they were with each other as co-founders. So they needed to take this from a place of out of sync with themselves and their audience to a place that was just hitting with people every single time. Because they really believed in their opportunity, in their market, and the product that they were developing. And again, bringing on their first few pilot customers, they knew that was going to be the path to then, that needed to be the platform to then scale up from there. Let me take a step back and give you a little bit about my background right now. I deeply care about everything we're talking about today because at my core, my why, if you will, is that everyone deserves a voice. I firmly believe this. This is what drives all of my pursuits. And I'm really fueled by the power of expression. So I do a lot of things. I'm a hip hop artist. The music you are hearing at the beginning of this, if you tuned in early enough, was my album. So if you go to Spotify, Apple Music, etc., type in the name RajNATION, all one word, and you'll see my music come up. I make hip hop about startup life, about the startup community. So it's literally music meant for all of you. I'm also a yoga instructor. I'm also a professional ring announcer and TV broadcaster for MMA, like the cage fighting sport. These are all different forms of storytelling. That's why I'm sharing this with you. Storytelling, having stage presence, etc. When I'm in the ring and I'm doing like I'm inside the cage on the house mic and I'm doing the in the blue corner, right? That is literally trying to give each fighter an identity and get the audience that's there to buy into the fight they're about to see. When I'm doing the television play-by-play broadcasting, I'm trying to narrate the action for the viewing audience at home and get them to stay interested in a fight beyond just punches and kicks. And so that's where certain fights, you have to figure out what's the narrative angle behind this that makes someone care about what they're watching beyond just two people punching each other, right? All of these things are different forms of narrative and storytelling. And then I've been running Startup Hypeman for the last 7 years. And these other elements to my background have helped fuel the perspective I have on the business and startup world. And I think at large, we need to borrow more from the performance and entertainment world as we think about pitching our businesses to people. Because why are we okay with getting entertained everywhere else? But then when we step into this domain, we're like, let's be really strict and boring, right? That shouldn't be the case. People want to be informed, they want to be entertained, and they want to feel like you care about them. All of this commitment over the years has had a really cool impact. We've worked with a lot of companies over the years. We've built over 300 pitches at this point in pretty much every continent except Antarctica. But you know, when the ice cliff falls and the penguins jump, we'll catch them and we'll give their pitch too. This has fueled a lot of money in capital raises and sales and a lot of pitch competition winners as well. So I'm just sharing all this with you to say, like, I really care about this. I'm also sharing this with you to say, through all of this experience, I took a step back earlier this year and I just did some reflection and I hit on something. And I want to pose a question for you because I asked myself this question earlier this year. What is the purpose of a pitch? Throw your answers in the chat. What do you believe the purpose, or you could think of the goal? What's the purpose or goal of a pitch? To get to the next meeting, to grab attention, to make a sale, pique someone's interest, get someone's interest to hear more. I think we're in the general neighborhood. And these were the things that I was originally thinking as well. And then, oh, Shane's here. What's up, Shane? These are the things I was originally thinking as well. And so Mayur is saying, convey they can make a bigger ROI on the investment. And I really want to shift your mindset, specifically Mayur, on that one. All of these things are outputs, but they're not necessarily the purpose or the goal. When I was doing this reflection exercise earlier this year, what I landed on after doing this so many times over is that when you really boil it down, the true purpose of a pitch is to make your audience feel seen. Because when they feel seen, they will trust you with their time, their energy, their information, and ultimately their money. When they feel seen, they find a piece of themselves in the story that you are telling. And if they cannot find themselves, your story isn't worth telling. So you know what doesn't make a person feel seen? Big, broad numbers. Do not fall victim to the market size mistake. Don't swing what I call big TAM energy. And what I mean by that is, like, so many founders think they're going to lure someone in if someone's like, oh, tell me your company. Well, machine learning is a $250 billion industry growing 8% year over year. And they deliver that line like as if people are going to be like, oh my God, no, is that big? Take my money now. That's not like it does not have that effect on people. In fact, the reality is when you lead your pitch with those big market size numbers, it comes off more like this.
Did you know that disco record sales were up 400% for the year ending 1976? If these trends continue, hey!
Your fish are dead.
Yeah, I know. I can't get them out of there.
Right? It's a little like that. And you don't want that to be how your audience thinks about you. And you don't want to come off like, again, just as if that's like the thing, because it's not the thing. So obviously, I feel really passionate about this. If you're still a little bit on the fence on if this content is in fact important, I want to share some quotes from a few other people. This first guy, here's his quote. I think messaging is one of the most important things startups can focus on, and it gets glossed over all the time. I think most companies fail at it, and that's probably why a lot of them actually fail overall. This is Raj Bhargava. I like to joke that he is the Tom Brady of entrepreneurship. In startup land, I would say the equivalent of winning a Super Bowl or winning a championship is IPOing or exiting. And he's done that like 7 times over. He's had 3 or 4 IPOs. He's had 2 or 3 exits. He's still on the board of his 7th, running his 8th. He helped start Techstars. He's also the co-author of a really good book called The Startup Playbook. I recommend you read that. This is what he told me. And I didn't say, hey, what's a messaging issue people have? I just said, what's an area that more startups need to be focused on? And this was his response. So if you don't really take my word for it, please take his word for it. If you still don't want to take his word for it, take the words of Sean Amirati. He told me how you end up like a WordPress or a YouTube is you have your foundational elevator pitch extremely tight. It really is the core building block upon which you can build all the different communications that are important for your business. Sean is an angel investor and a professor of entrepreneurship at Carnegie Mellon. He also authored a book called The Science of Growth, where him and his research team took nearly identical products in identical markets and studied what were the elements that led one to scale up and the other to die out. For example, we've all heard of YouTube. The video I just played was on YouTube. At the time of YouTube's come up was another company that was basically the exact same company called Rever. What did YouTube do well that Rever could not? That's what this book looks at 5 different side-by-side case studies. So I recommend you read that. And I also want to underscore the second part of his quote. It's not just that everything we're talking about today is about like, what's that soundbite you say up front? It's that this is foundational messaging that should fuel all of your sales, your marketing, and your fundraising communication. If you still don't want to take his word for it, take the words of Abhinaya Kundaru, who's a VC here in Chicago, where I am. She told me, storytelling is the #1 most important founder trait. It's not just that it means you can pitch me. Good storytelling is a leading indicator of your ability to get customers and hire the right people, which will ultimately determine your success. The fact that you can tell a good story, that an investor recognizes you can tell a good story, means that they now feel more confident in your customer acquisition and hiring the right team. So can we all agree that your story, your message, your pitch is in fact important? Yeah? Okay, let's do this then. Walter, am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So here's what we're going to do. I want you all to come off of mute, and we're going to do a call and response here. I'll say a part of the sentence. You'll repeat it back to me when I push my hands forward. So bring yourself off of mute. My product does not mean shit.
Does not mean
shit.
Without a compelling story.
Without a
compelling
story.
Do it all as one sentence all together. 3, 2, 1. My product does not mean shit without a compelling story.
So help me God.
Beautiful. Okay, you can take yourselves onto mute once again. Thank you for participating. With that mutual understanding, let's move forward. And we know this is important. Let's look at what we care about now. Money, right? We are trying to get the bag. We're trying to raise capital. We're trying to generate revenue, trying to get customers. You can also think about money in terms of we are trying to just provide for ourselves and our family. We are trying to build generational wealth. We are trying to create economic impact with our work. We are trying to create jobs in the economy. right? This is ultimately what we are trying to accomplish. And we just identified that the path to that is the compelling story. Yet at the same time, there is this delta. And it can be hard to achieve this image here if you don't have that compelling story. And maybe, like earlier when I gave everyone an opportunity for someone to come up and pitch, maybe you didn't volunteer yourself because you were worried it was going to come off something like this.
The dog, you put the food in the thing, and then the dog sees it, and food's dangling. It's dangling. Dog looks at dang, tail wag, dog wagging the tail, whatever dog's name is. Dog's name is Claire. Claire, come in. Claire sees dog food, pick, Facebook, like.
Sizzle, strategy, sex, something.
This is the worst pitch I have ever seen.
Maybe you felt like that before, or a version of that, where it's almost like you're stuttering, you're repeating your words, you're not making a ton of sense. Maybe you get that emotional feeling as if your tongue is swelling in your throat, right? So what is it that's holding I didn't realize how many Simpsons things I had in this presentation. What is it that's holding everyone back? Well, I have talked to literally thousands, maybe 5,000 entrepreneurs at this point over the last 7 years. And what it has continuously come back to is a concept that I call the messaging treadmill, being that we know this is important, but it just feels like we're constantly running in place when we try and figure it out. So the messaging treadmill says that the reason why this is difficult, these are the top 3 reasons that have come out in all of these presentations and conversations. Number 1 is being too in the weeds, right? Like you work on this thing so close every single day. It's very hard to zoom out and, as they say, see the forest for the trees. Very hard to zoom out and think about this with a fresh mind and talk to someone else then in turn who has fresh ears, fresh eyes, and fresh mind. Number 2 is being too technical. Maybe you're the product person. You've built the thing, like you know the code, you know the back end, you know the product really well, but the communication side of it isn't your strong suit. So if you need to get into a tech-driven conversation, technology-driven conversation, you're going to shine there. But as it pertains to figuring out a true story for the product and the brand, that's where it becomes more difficult. Number 3 is being too caught up in the day-to-day. You are running a company. You have a million things on your to-do list. And I know how this goes because I'm a founder as well, where you can have a to-do list of like 10 things. The 10th thing could say, work on pitch. You'll knock off the first 9 things on the list, and then you'll look at that item and then create 9 new tasks to put in front of it, right? It just keeps getting pushed to later and later and later. And it can be hard to sit down and be like, let me just focus on this when I have so many other things going on. The other thing that compounds these 3 issues is the fact that this is entrepreneurship and there's an ongoing mental crisis that comes with that, where like we wake up, we pour our coffee, we make the mistake of checking email while pouring coffee, and we see like, oh my God, the product has been down for the last 10 hours and nobody told me. And you're like, okay, well, today's going to be great. And then you get an email from your developer a half hour later being like, hey, still no updates, can't find the source issue, don't have a word back on the uptime yet. And you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then you start getting a flood of messages from customers who are like, you're terrible, I can't access my own data, you're stealing from me, you're the worst, I'm going to slam you online, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get an email from an investor you met last week who's like, hey, thanks for coming in, but no thanks, we're going to pass and move on somewhere else. And you're like, could this day get any worse? Around 1 o'clock, you're thinking, maybe I should have listened to my family and stayed in that high salary job and not done this crazy thing known as running a company. 2 o'clock, something good happens. You're like, maybe it won't be so bad. And then 3 o'clock, something bad happens. And then this trickles on to the end of the day. And somehow we get up and we do it again the next day, every single day. And it's not just that we do it every day. It's that this is entrepreneurship. This is a 7-day-a-week job. So Saturday and Sunday count too. And even if you're not physically working on those days, your mind is always thinking about it. And when you have all of these things going on in your head, it can be really hard to have a positive impression of your own company, right? Your job when you pitch is to like give, like, really help this thing shine. And when you're like, well, these are the 9 things that went wrong today, that harms your own impression of your own company, right? You know how the sausage gets made. As Shane said, you have cameras in my office. So with Kim and Joyce from HonestGame, who I showed you at the beginning, they were very much numbers 1 and 2, 2 in the weeds and 2 technical. So the first thing we had to fix, which I talked to them about, and everyone that I encounter, we give out this lesson first. We have to change our mindset. And from this day forward, I want you to stop thinking like an entrepreneur and instead think like an entertainer. Why an entertainer? Because the entertainer has one goal in mind, and that is to make my audience feel something, emotionally move them, make them feel seen, right? They show up for their audience. As a result, you do not see, if you think of your favorite artist, you do not see them take the stage and be like, all right, how are we doing tonight? You know, insert city, London. How are we doing tonight, London? And then everyone's like, yeah, we're great. Okay, so tonight we're going to play every song in our entire catalog. We've released 14 studio albums. It's about 15 songs per album. We're going to play all of those, including the random skits that are on some of the albums too. After we get through that, we're also going to share with you some of the working drafts in our garage that aren't fine-tuned yet. They probably don't sound good, but it's really important to us that you know they exist. So we're going to do that. And then after that, I want to spend a little bit of time giving you a window into our upcoming 6 to 9 month music roadmap. It's going to take about, 29 hours to get through it all. Are you with me? London's going home on that. I'm telling you. You are going to be like, what are you doing? Play the hits, right? They do not sit there and give you everything. They curate a set list. And that set list is curated off of the emotion they want to leave you with. So if you are thinking like an entertainer, as you start to think about your pitch, you want to do that through the lens of thinking about it like, what is my set list, right? What is my greatest hits set list, if you will? And notice how the set list that is designed in advance allows them to adapt to the city they are in. So they know if they go to Los Angeles, for example, they can do an LA themed, little tidbit here, versus when they go to Toronto, they can do something Toronto focused over here. But they don't wing it, right? They don't go into every city being like, well, let's just figure out what we're going to do when we take the stage, or 5 minutes before. The fact that they have a set list allows them to adapt to the moment, to the environment. Similarly, you want to know your set list so you know how you can adapt in the specific environment you're in, whether that's at an event or on stage for a competition or inside of an office in a closed door meeting, etc. A great example of this notion in action is one of my favorite music artists, Jay-Z. He had a song at this point, it was actually 21 years ago. It was called Moment of Clarity. And he compared his success to that of a couple other underground rappers, not as well known. Those rappers go by the name of Talib Kweli and Common, or also goes by Common Sense. Someone is currently off mute. If you could put yourself on mute, I'm getting some feedback. Ksenia and Sasha, if you can mute yourselves, please. Thank you. So Jay-Z is comparing himself to Talib Kweli and Common, who also goes by Common Sense. And he says, I dumbed down for my audience and doubled my dollars. If skills sold, truth be told, I'd probably be lyrically Talib Kweli. Truthfully, I want to rhyme like Common Sense. I did 5 mil. I ain't been rhyming like Common Sense. So in effect, what he is saying here is, look, I could be that kind of artist. And I could do all like the intense socially conscious stuff and all that, be really lyrically dense and intricate. But I realized if I really wanted to break through to the mainstream, I had to meet my audience where they were. And once I did that, I did 5 million sales of a single record and I never looked back. And to this day, Jay-Z, he ended up becoming hip hop's first billionaire. So he kind of called his own shot. And it's not like Talib Kweli and Common aren't successful in their own right, but ask the everyday person, who are they? Are they going to tell you who they are? Maybe some of us will, right? Some of us big hip hop fans will know. The average person's not going to. And I'm not saying you can't be like, they are successful in their own right. But I think if your goal is to build a high scale, like venture-backed endeavor, you have to make the decision of, do I want to be an underground or a mainstream artist? Do I want to break through the mainstream of my industry? And high growth venture backed, you got to choose that option, because ultimately what it boils down to is, do I want to sell out basements or do I want to sell out arenas? And if you want to sell out arenas, you got to start thinking like an entertainer. Another way to look at this is this graphic here from the company User Onboard. You have Super Mario. Small Mario is your customer. The flower is your product. And you combine those together, you get Big Mario on fire, shooting fireballs, stomping over Koopa, saving the day. You are selling the right side of the equation. So many people try to focus on selling the flower, the product, but that is not what you are selling. You are selling what is the benefit, result, the better future of your audience. So that's our mindset. Let's start to transition now into part 2, which is the formulas and strategies. As we think about developing an elevator pitch, I think it's really helpful to have a template first, to have a kind of an example of a really good pitch first, to then look through the lens of formulas and strategies. So the example I'm going to show you on the next slide is actually, it's not from a company, which might be surprising. Because I have searched high and low and far and wide, and over the years, what I have found is that the single greatest elevator pitch out there is actually Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song. So earlier, you didn't know you tuned into a live interactive game show. You also didn't know you tuned into a live sing-along concert today. So we're going to come off of mute again, and we are going to sing collectively the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song. And everyone's going to be at a different internet connection speed, and it'll be great. So bring yourself off of mute, and let's do this. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Now this is a story all about how
my life got
turned upside down. I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there.
I'll
See
tell you
how I became the
the
prince of a town called Bel-Air. In West Philadelphia, born and raised. On the playground is where I spend most of my days. Chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool and all, shooting some b-ball outside of my school with a couple of guys who were up to no good. Started making trouble in my neighborhood.
I got one little fight.
My mom got scared. She said,
Your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air.
All right, let's pause it there. Round of applause. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. You can go back to mute now. The key is you have to listen to only yourself and no one else to not get caught up in the pace at which someone else is going with the internet lags. So why do we do that? Yeah, it's fun and everything, but that's actually his elevator pitch for the show. He's telling a story in that intro, and it really is just about a minute long. And he's saying, hey, I had this really rough upbringing in Philadelphia, and there was a lot of bad stuff going on. My mom recognized this early on, so she saw the path for growth for me to fulfill my potential would be to send me off to Bel-Air, California. That way I'd be surrounded by the right family structure, have access to the right education, and be able to tap into the right resources so that ultimately I could grow into the man that she knew I was capable of becoming. That is the story being told, and that's what sets up the show, right? If you had never seen the introduction and you watched an episode, you'd spend the entire episode trying to figure out what's going on here. But when you know that introduction first, it sets the table for the plot. It invites someone to experience the plot, or you give them the basic plot so they can expand on it. That's what your elevator pitch needs to do. It needs to introduce them to the plot. Nothing more and nothing less. Introduce them to the plot. So you don't bludgeon them over the head with every possible thing that your product can do, right? There has to be some room for them to ask follow-up questions to learn more. You're trying, if you think about this through the lens of entertainment, you're trying to make sure with your introduction that they don't want to change the channel, right? Your elevator pitch should keep them sticking to your show. They should want to keep watching your show, quote unquote. Your show would be the longer conversation, potentially your pitch deck, the demo, whatever those things might be. The other reason I use this as an example is notice how they didn't get to like season 5 and say, you know what? People get the song. We don't need to keep doing it. Everyone gets it by now. Every episode all the way to the end of the show started with the intro song because they know it might be your 50th episode watching it, but it's always someone else's first time. And they have to make sure that that first person is brought up to speed. And they're okay with you hearing a message again in the process, because it's just going to be reinforced for you. And I'm sharing that because pitch fatigue is real. And it especially happens if you are at an event, like if you're at a conference or you have a booth, and people are walking up and they're asking you, you know, I see it happen a lot where like an hour in, the founder is like, oh God, I've done this like 10 times already. Yeah, okay, our product does this, this, and this. You're doing a disservice to yourself if that's how you act, because you owe it to that person. It might be your 100th time giving the pitch that day, but it's that person's first time hearing it. You owe it to them to give it your all and give it your best in that moment, because it might be the 101st person where the opportunity lies. And so you don't want to phone it in as a result. Come back to the Fresh Prince idea, right? They didn't just can the song because they were tired of doing it, because people heard it enough times. So to develop your elevator pitch, we need to first figure out your positioning in the market. So here's formula number one. It's around your positioning. We have to determine the positioning of your offering to the market. To do that, we use this tool that I call the superhero positioning strategy. You have to think of your product, your offering, your company as a superhero. Because what do superheroes do? They help and they save people. What are you doing? You're helping and you're saving a subset of the population from something. And I like Batman as the example here, because what was Batman? He took technology, he combined it with access to capital, and he served the public good. Does that sound familiar? Technology plus access to capital equals serve the public good. So give yourselves a pat on the back for being Bat people. Now, if you take this as an example and you consider yourself Batman, you can even look at the images on the slide. Generally speaking, what is happening that makes him put on the cape to come and save the day? What is going on? And you can use the chat and drop some answers in there, or you can come off of mute, whichever works better for you. Chaos. Yeah, exactly. Chaos, crime. Someone's being mugged in the street. Joker's blown up the hospital, right? These are all the things that make him put on the cape and save the day. Batman does not save Gotham on a sunny day. If it's 75 degrees outside, Fahrenheit, for those of you international folks, 75 Fahrenheit, people have their kids at the park, they're taking their dog for a walk. You do not see Batman swoop in and be like, oh, I'm here to save you. Because if he did, do you know how the people would react? They'd be like, stay the hell away from my kids, you creep. Right? They would get the exact opposite impression of Batman. But Batman shows up when things like this are happening on the screen, right? Batman shows up when there's chaos and crime. And as a result, what do? They say, thank you, Batman, for saving me. Thank you for saving the day. So the superhero positioning strategy states that in order for you, the superhero, to exist, you must first have a person in distress. With a person in distress, then there's a village on fire. With the village on fire, you activate a superpower. And with your superpower activated, the superhero swoops in to save the day. Or in business speak, this is your target audience, the problem set that they have, the approach you take to that, and ultimately your solution. The reason why this is an effective exercise is because it forces you to think empathically or empathetically on the side of your audience. You put yourself in their headspace. And remember earlier, we said, make your audience feel seen. This is the starting point of that. You put yourself in their shoes first before you think about what you can do for them. Now, with Kim and Joyce and HonestGame, we use this exercise. Everyone we work with, we do this exercise. If you happen to do this on your own, take out a sheet of paper, draw 4 columns, and bullet point out your answers underneath each. Do not worry about how it sounds in this stage. Just get the ideas out of your head. Treat this as an organized data dump. And go in the order too. It's really easy to do this and start with superhero because you know that part really well. But don't do that because you'll end up then backfilling whatever you say before to match your conclusion. You want to start left and work your way to the right. From this, we have the organized raw material to deliver and craft and deliver a really compelling elevator pitch. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you what that elevator pitch formula is. Are we ready to see that? If you are, in the chat, type in capital letters the word pitch. Shane, I will come back to your question in a few minutes because it's relevant and I want to just answer it at the right part. Pitch, 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 pitch. The crowd is chanting it. The audience is on their feet. They want it. Ladies and gentlemen, the most deadly effective, yet easy to remember messaging strategy, framework, formula, you call it, you will ever encounter. I call it the ¿Qué pasa elevator pitch formula. If anyone knows Spanish, you will know that ¿Qué pasa in Spanish means what's up or what's happening. And as it pertains to your elevator pitch, your job is to tell people what's up with them, and therefore what's up with you. PASA is the acronym, which stands for problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. The reason why this is effective is because you start with the problem and you provide context and frame of reference for why you should exist. Additionally, and perhaps most importantly, you lead with empathy. Empathy is the key to this whole thing. You start from their side and you show them, you recognize where they are today, and then you walk hand in hand with them over to your side. Versus starting on your side and then yanking them across the line over to your side. Right? You want to walk with them. You don't want to be tugging them over to where you are. Problem, approach, solution, action. This formula, I developed it many years back. It is inherently designed to be able to deliver your pitch in under a minute or less. You'll see how approach is different from solution as I show you some examples in the next few slides. Action is going to be your call to action. And this is going to change based on the scenario you're in. So what do you want you can also think of it as your ask, like what do you want someone to do now that they just heard what you said? Shane asked a minute ago, it often feels like the superhero story for customers and prospects are different than an investor pitch. Any thoughts or reactions to that? Really good question. When you are pitching investors, the best way to get their attention is to show them how you pitch customers. Because if you can get across to them that you know how to talk to the people who really matter, that's going to go a long way with them. So as you do this elevator pitch, right, this ¿Qué pasa, you're not thinking about the investor's problem. You're thinking about it through the lens of your audience, your target audience, your customer, your prospect's problem. And you're highlighting that to an investor. And you're simply telling the investor, well, let me tell you how we pitch our customers. And then they're going to latch onto that. And I tell you, we have built, again, like 300 plus pitches under this formula, and it works. And I was last month, or a little over a month ago, I was in an Uber with an investor, and I just ran a couple of our client elevator pitches by him using ¿Qué pasa? And I was like, I just want to get your reaction on these. And his reaction was literally, these are so good, and it's so easy to understand what each of these companies do. And I'm also interested in talking to these companies. Simply by highlighting what the audience of those companies needed to hear, but showing that to the investor. Ultimately, what this formula is doing is a very big shift in the way you may be used to pitching. And what you are doing is, what I'm saying is, don't lead with your offering, lead to it. Huge shift. Don't lead with your offering, lead to it. Superhero positioning strategy and ¿Qué pasa elevator pitch formula are the two frameworks and formulas I wanted to give you today. Now, let me use the remaining time to show you a few examples underneath these formulas and strategies. First person I want to introduce you to is Christine. She is the founder of a company called Cyber Pop-Up. She had a marketplace, or has a marketplace, and she, at this time anyway, she was the marketplace. Like, she was manually like acting as the broker and like providing the service herself, and was looking to get on the scene and raise some capital to be able to actually build out the technology so it was a real marketplace. She was saying, here's the challenge. We need to balance the seriousness and private nature of cybersecurity with the flexibility and simplicity of our platform so people understand the value, how we're different, and why they should trust us. So here was the elevator pitch when we applied KPASA, starting with the problem. Your server was hacked. You failed an audit. Your latest software update is vulnerable. Cybersecurity is serious business. It's also highly specialized. So why would you find an expert from the same place your marketing team gets their freelance graphic designers? What? Meanwhile, traditional consulting firms take you through a sales process that lasts months, but you needed someone for the job like yesterday. Get vetted specialists in a fraction of the time at a time when you need it most with Cyber Pop-Up. Submit your project and get started as early as the same day. We manage the team and verify all your requirements are met so you get the highest quality delivery without the headaches. Cybersecurity isn't a matter of if, but when. So when it hits the fan, go to cyberpopup.com. Capital letter C in the chat if you have a baseline understanding of the plot of this company and how they would provide value to their audience of medium-sized business owners. Good. Good. We're all understanding this. Good. 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 This set the table of their pitch deck, their other pitch materials, and Christine went on a tear. These were the series of emails that I got. Sidebar, I won 20K yesterday. How many of you would like to send an email where the sidebar in that email is that you won 20K? Won another 5K this week. Then a little bit later, she won $100,000 in a competition. The following weekend, she won another $100,000. So much so that she ended up getting media attention for all the competition she was winning. In the course of a year, she won over $250,000 in pitch competition winnings. This then springboarded her and got her the attention she needed to successfully raise a 7-figure seed round. So big ups to Christine and her journey, and she's still been building the company since then and growing it. Now I want to introduce you to Nestor, founder of a company called Sigo Seguros. He told me investors struggle to see any differentiation when it comes to auto insurance progress. We've made progress, but I want to button up the story so we can hit the fundraising trail hard. Here was the KPASA for Sigo Seguros. Every driver in America needs auto insurance. If you're white and affluent, that's not a problem. But if you're Latino and live in a Spanish-speaking zip code, major carriers prey on you with hidden fees for purchasing, renewing, adding a family member, changing your car, changing your address, you name it. Not to mention being told you have to spend a Tuesday afternoon at an agent's office because you don't qualify for online service. The gecko doesn't dish out 15% in 15 minutes in the barrio. Sigo Seguros is fair insurance without the fight. In just a few minutes and a few taps, get state minimum limit liability coverage, no hidden fees, and no annoying visits to an office. As more drivers use Sigo, we provide better rates and enhance our advantage over the existing carriers who don't have the data in the first place and can't access their convoluted distribution layers.
Doesn't affect the signal that you're
Learn
hearing.
more at sigoseguros.com. Capital letter S in the chat if you understand how their plot, how they might be valuable to their target audience. Notice how none of these pitches are getting buried in the intricacies of the technology, right? You can save that for later on, but up front, they don't need to know the algorithm works. Let's come back to, here they raised about $5 million last year. Let's come back to Kim and Joyce. We started with them, right? This was the challenge they were facing, confusing everybody. We talked earlier about how the elevator pitch is really kind of multidimensional and that it's not just a soundbite, but it's something you can use that it should fuel your pitch deck. It should fuel your collateral, et cetera. And they were able to turn the elevator pitch into the script of an explainer video. So we're going to watch their pitch through this video.
As I'm in the midst of a...
Okay, first there's a Grammarly.
Watch live and local news on a variety.
Wait, did I mute myself there? My bad. Okay. We're going to watch their pitch here. And we start with the problem. Problem.
When you're a star high school student athlete, you compete tirelessly on the court and in the classroom to achieve your one dream of playing in college. Top schools recruit you and even offer you a scholarship. Then senior year hits and you find out that the class you took actually doesn't count. Your GPA is 0.25 off or your SAT score is 10 points too low. Even with the experts in your corner, school counselors, parents, and coaches, athletic eligibility rules can be confusing to navigate. And often by the time you find out you're ineligible, it's too late to catch up. Boom. Game over.
Approach.
HonestGame is the clear pathway for getting in.
Solution.
We automate the process so the student, the parent, the coach, the counselor, and the college all get real-time eligibility updates. With HonestGame, everyone knows what to do before it's too late. In the
interest of time, I'll pause it there for the purpose of the video. They threw some extra stats on the back end of this. Capital letter H in the chat. If you understand how HonestGame might be valuable to the student athletes who play in high school and have a dream of playing in college, and the college is trying to recruit them. Good. And I wish I had like film of what their pitch was before, but I don't, because I don't think you would have gotten a sense of any clue of what they did. So this was their elevator pitch. Again, it fueled the pitch deck and their other collateral, and an opportunity came up where they could enter a competition that was sponsored by the Chicago Bulls in partnership with an investment group called Loud Capital. 221 companies applied to this. HonestGame applied, and they were selected for the top 20 in the semifinals. From there, they pitched, the 20 companies got to pitch. That was whittled down to a top 5, and HonestGame actually made it into the finals, the top 5. And they beat out plenty of other companies who had revenue. They didn't even have revenue yet. In the finals, 5 companies pitched on center court at the United Center where the Bulls play, to the Bulls executives, to Loud Capital, and to some other important business leaders. They were going up against a couple other companies who were already doing a multi-million-dollar annual revenue. The next day during the Bulls game, the winner was announced. And guess who got to stand tall holding the big check? Kim and Joyce from HonestGame, the same 2 people who could not get 2 people in a single room to identify their company properly. Now they had an arena of 20,000 people looking at them holding a $50,000 check. This then springboarded them to their seed round. And last I checked in with them, they are now at a point where they're doing multi-million ARR. Their story is really meaningful to me. And I hope you take a lot from their journey as well, because they started being confused and not confident to being captivating, compelling, speaking with clarity, and having a ton of confidence. The final thing I want to hit you with as you leave today, and I'll stick around for a few minutes if you have some questions, but I want to make sure you get these couple resources. But just philosophically, what I hope you recognize with all of these pitches is that what we did was something very different, aside from just the format of the pitches. Philosophically behind all of that is not positioning anyone as better than the rest or the best of the lot, because that immediately just creates feature comparison to what else is out there. Instead, don't be the best, but be the only. Because the companies who can establish and position themselves as the only, these are the ones who create categories. These are the ones who set the trends for others. These are the ones who build the sandbox and decide who else gets to play in it, if anyone else. Right? It becomes your rules when your audience recognizes you as the only. So don't strive to be the best, be the only.
Did we just lose Raj?
Yeah, I think Raj just froze. We'll give it a second, see if he jumps back on. Hold on here. Looks like he's jumping back on. He'll be on in 1 minute.
Just for dramatic effect.
Yeah, exactly. Probably part of the presentation.
Hey, there he is.
My internet dropped there. My bad. Hopefully this is okay because now I tethered to my phone. So where was I? As a follow-up email, I will send to you what I said is the director's cut recording of this workshop. So that is a pre-recorded version of it. The examples that are in that pre-recorded version might be a little bit different, but I also share a few additional examples in that version. Plus, there's an extra 10, 15 minutes specifically on advanced storytelling techniques for fundraising pitch decks. When I say advanced techniques, I'm not covering like what a basic slide outline should be like. My understanding is you can Google that or you already know that. These are the things to layer on top of to really jazz it up and make it compelling. We have an online community called the Goat to Market Club. You can join at the link in the bottom right of the slide. Let me pull that slide back up. You can join at that link there. My LinkedIn is here, so please connect with me. And then you have my other contact information as well. What else can I tell you real quick? Yeah, those are the main things. Even if, again, you have the calendar link there. Even if you never talk to me again in your entire life, I hope you take the stuff we talked about today seriously and you use it to further your own progress and your own traction. I can answer any final questions now for those of you who do want to stick around. I did see, I think, oh, Shane, you were just giving a comment. It feels like there's the right altitude of the problem that we may be missing. Okay, great. What questions do you all have or comments or feedback or anything like that?
I just want to say thanks. I got homework to do.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
No, I thought it was an interesting approach because another like angel group where they have their own pitch advisors always recommend like you're pitching to investors, stop selling your product. So it's like depending on who you talk to.
Yeah. So here's what I've found.
Yeah.
I have never seen an investor say, you know your customer so well, and I hate that.
Right.
I'm not saying if you figure out a unique pitch just for that investor, like they won't be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. But if you want to land more broad, like if you want to have a higher success rate, show them what your value prop is to your customers, because that's what's going to scale your company anyways, is knowing how to talk to your customers. And there are, some minor tweaks you can make specific to like you can take K-Pasta and make just a couple of minor tweaks specific to the investor concern. And that's what we'll do when the situation calls for it. But again, like people think, oh, I need to speak investor language. And then they say, oh, what does your company do? And then they pull the, oh, well, let me tell you that, health food is growing at 80% year over year and is already a $450 billion industry. And it's like, you're just wasting 2 sentences on numbers they're probably not going to remember anyways. And it's nothing that is unique to you. Anyone can claim a market size. And I'm not saying market size is not important. It's just not the most important thing. So this is where like they're investing in you because they believe in your success of your go-to-market and your vision for what you're going to do to the industry. So that's where I believe the emphasis lies. But you take this K-Pasta and it fuels your fundraising pitch deck. That pitch deck will be focused for investors, but built around, this is the starting narrative.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
because we're doing a movement based, we want to do sports games that are movement based in mixed reality, and we're starting with basketball. So a lot of times, like when I first started pitching, I try to sell it on, okay, everyone grows up watching the greats like Magic or Jordan or now Caitlin Clark, and we give you that experience, to really feel what it's like to compete. But then other investors like, well, that's not really a problem. And so I struggle with, I guess it depends on the investor. Like, are we trying to sell an experience that fans will gravitate toward, who are sports fans, or even engaging the next generation into sports, because they all follow these great athletes on social? Or do I try to pitch it like, because it is movement based and that's our differentiator, that we're solving a problem of worldwide youth are physically inactive for the majority because they spend too much time on screens. So we're meeting them where they're at in mixed reality by an engaging movement-based game.
It's going to be more in line with the second one, but you want to nail the value of an individual person and then expand that out to how that affects a lot of people.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can still use them. I mean, you potentially could use the line about, Magic, Michael, et cetera, but then tie that back to today. It's almost like, how do you emulate them, right? There is a problem there. You just got to like dig into it a little bit further to figure out how you take a situation and now identify a problem within it.
Okay.
Shane, you said B2B may be different than direct to consumer. Yeah, generally, same format and everything, but in a B2B setting, you want to have your kind of like your broad elevator pitch that could be like plastered on your website, for example. At the same time, when you're directly speaking to a person, like let's say it's a cold email, for example, or you've got them on your demo call and you need to introduce the company. KPOS is the definitive way to like introduce your company at the start of a sales call. In that setting, you don't want to accuse that person of having a problem. So you want to take the pitch you've created and diffuse it across the market. So you'd adjust the languaging a little bit to be like, you don't want to, in your case being an ed tech product, you don't want to be like, hey, you teacher, or hey, you principal, you're bad at teaching or leading a school, right? You want to be able to highlight the problem without making it their fault.
Raj, so with me being a food product and without getting into too much detail, our product it's a low carb, gluten-free hot cereal, right? So it addresses keto, paleo, gluten-free, vegan. It covers a wide expanse of people, but I'm sitting here trying to come up with, okay, how would I do this? And it doesn't feel like it would fit seamlessly into this, but I know it can work. Do you have any recommendations for how like a food product would do this?
Yeah, you want to unite. So I think what you're saying is you have some people who would be eating this because they are gluten intolerant, but then you have other people who just want to be like healthier, right?
Yes, but I mean, on a more general level, I mean, every product has a problem and a solution, but I feel like a tech product has, maybe that's what I'm saying. So I have all these overlapping markets. I don't have just one simple problem I'm trying to correct, unless it is, just the difficulty of finding a product to replace something you can no longer tolerate. You know what I mean?
It could be that. Yeah, it could be that. When you have multiple different audience types, you'd want to figure out what's the common thread between them, and then you can hit on different use cases as you talk about the problem. Maybe you're this, or maybe you're this, right? Whichever you are, it all sucks essentially, right? You're not going to say it that way, but like that's the the point you're getting across.
Okay.
And we actually, there's a keto company we worked with a few years back, actually.
Oh, good. Okay. And that was actually, I didn't ask that, but I was wondering if you have any food-based success stories.
Yeah.
But Besides, this was awesome. Thank you. Because, you know, I've been to pitch competitions with people like the first young lady who won all that money, you know, competition after competition.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know eventually I have to get on that stage, but how do you do that? So I've been looking for pitch coaching, and this I think is exactly what I've been looking for, you know. So thank you.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. You're welcome. I hope to see you again. Ashish asked, does the pitch need to be tailored for each investor? Sorry, I missed the early part of the call. You want to have like your like master pitch. And then if you know you've got a meeting with a specific investor group where they specifically care more about one thing versus another, that's where you can adjust, you know, a slide or two based on that specific investor group. But what you want to avoid is every time you take a meeting, you're tearing down the whole thing and like, I've seen some screen shares of some people we work with where it's like version 19.7 of their deck. And they literally have a folder of like 100 different versions of their pitch deck. You want to have like that one master version, and then just, you know, you've got a meeting with this person on this day and you know this about them, make a slight tweak for that scenario. It's like you have a suit, you're tailoring the suit for the function. You're not buying a new suit each time you go to a function. Okay. I gotta go. We're 14 minutes over time. Walter, thank you for sticking around. We will get the follow-up information out to you. And then is this recording from today exactly going to go out to them as well, Walter?
Yeah. And yeah, we'll get this recording, all the resources, and yeah, anything else anybody needs, just, you know, let us know. But yeah, we'll get this out in the next few days.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Right. Thanks,
Take care.
Raj. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.